Hello and welcome to Midlife Moments with Dr. G. I'm Dr. Georgina Hale, specialist physician and PhD in women's hormones. So these midlife moments are about bringing you perhaps lesser known information on the hormonal changes that occur at midlife for women. And it's also bringing you information about how these hormonal changes can cause symptoms or trigger symptoms. I'll be also discussing how you can determine where you are at in terms of the progression to perimenopause and menopause. And finally, of course, I'll discuss solutions that you can action yourself at home, and you can also take to your medical healthcare provider to have discussions with, particularly if you're on hormone replacement and medical interventions that you might be on. And so all this information that I'll be talking about, or not all, but most of it that I'll be discussing in relation to the hormonal changes at midlife, are in my new book. So this is it. It's available Amazon and all the outlets. And if you're an Australian reader, please go to my website www.halehealthmedicine.com to access it there as well. This book, it took me at least 10 years, around about 15 years. And it's the first sort of step down version of my PhD findings, the hormonal findings, the endocrinology, we call it, of the midlife and menopause transition. It's a blood study, so I studied blood. It's normally studies are on the urine because it's much easier, but I studied the blood hormone levels in younger people, midlife women, and women who are even a bit older. And why did I do this study? I'm a physician, I'm a general medicine physician as well as infectious diseases. So I guess being more leaning towards general principles and general medicine principles to accompany my infectious diseases, I was aware more and more that I didn't know anything about women's hormones. I didn't know anything about menopause, perimenopause. I didn't know anything, and that's half the population. And as I've subsequently found out, hormonal changes can sort of impact women's symptoms and health. And sort of sorting through what might be hormonal changes and what may be other health issues is really so much easier now that I have that knowledge. And thank you to the Cedars-Sinai Women's Health Centre, Professor Claude Hughes, also Professor Barry Mears, who took me on that journey in Los Angeles. I set up the study that I wanted to do, came back to the Sydney University to do it, and it was great. It was a lot of hard work, and I kept saying I'm going to have the book. The problem was I had all this information. I could step it down for women and explain what was going on, but I didn't have any solutions. So that's when, well, it's not really when, but I kind of fell into doing a functional medicine course and a certification with the IFM. And, there's information in the literature and in science that we just don't cover in our medical training. And to put it in a nutshell, it's functional medicine is about the body or physiological changes underlying symptoms, and it's also underlying disease, but importantly it's underlying symptoms so that you can actually avoid disease by addressing the underlying cause of a symptom initially. It's complex, but there are simple principles that people themselves can take themselves and have control of themselves before they even need to take a medication. But even if you're on medication, you can make that medication work a lot better. Even hormone replacement or hormone therapy, you can make that work a lot better when you know what to do with your own body, your own physiology. So we're talking about diet and lifestyle, yes, but it can be really motivating to understand what you're actually doing and why. So I go a lot into the solutions in this book, and it comes from the functional medicine approach, and also my detailed medical training into diagnoses, medicines, and of course diet and lifestyle approaches sort of woven into that in my practice. So here it is again, my new book, and I hope you would like to read it. It's one of those books that you don't just read and chuck. It's more like a reference book. You can go back to the areas that you want to go back to, because you will find out where you are in terms of your midlife and your menopause when you read this. Okay, so in my next introduction I'm going to go into a little bit more about what's in each of the sections and why I did it and why you might benefit from reading the book. Until next time. Hello and welcome to the second introduction to Midlife Moments with Dr. G. I'm Dr. Georgina Hale, specialist medical doctor and PhD in midlife women's hormones. And this is what the new book is about, midlife women's hormones, symptoms you get from the changes in hormones and some solutions. So this second introduction is about what is in this book. And I guess I wanted to start firstly with some of the questions that come up for a lot of midlife women and what I do cover in the book. So for instance, are you 35 and older and want a meaningful set of information or a meaningful set of facts about how your body and hormones might be changing? Are your periods causing you much more pain or discomfort than before? Do you easily get overwhelmed, emotional, or irritable in response to things that in the past you didn't care about? And there's lots of questions that come up for midlife women, but these are some of them. Has your libido vanished? Do you need to take prescription medications to help you just get through or to just function? So these are some of the questions that you might have asked yourself, and if you have, this book is for you. So there are 3 sections. The first section is about the body and the physiology. It's my blue section. It's how your reproductive body works. So I explain a lot about the menstrual cycle, how that works, the ovary, the uterus, the brain, very much involved in the running of the menstrual cycle, and some of the hormones and where they come from, including estrogen, progesterone, FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, LH, and some of the lesser known ones like inhibin, anti-Müllerian hormone, etc. So with that knowledge, I then take you into how to determine where you are at in midlife. Are you in midlife? Are you in early perimenopause? Are you in menopause? This section, after you're given I set out the knowledge about what's going on in your reproductive body, you can use that to determine which zone you are in, where you're at. So zone 1, 2, 3 or 4. Zone 1 is midlife, zone 2 is early menopause transition, zone 3 is late menopause transition, and zone 4 is menopause. So you'll be given an understanding of how you're going to progress if you haven't progressed yet, if you're just 35 or 36, and it gives you an idea of what to expect when when some changes happen in your menstrual cycle or your body, that you might be getting into the next zone, and what you can do about it in terms of the symptoms you might be experiencing. So that's in section 1. And the zones are really what I created from the scientific stages of reproductive aging workshop. It was a workshop coordinated by a lot of North American researchers, and I was part of the team in 2001 and 2010 because of my research. My PhD research classified women according to those STRAW stages of reproductive aging workshop. So I'm very familiar with it, and to help bring that science into the everyday office or to the everyday woman, I just stepped them down to the zone 1, 2, 3 and 4. So it makes it easy for you to be more scientific about where you're at in terms of your reproductive system and how you're going. Then in section 2, the pink section, is more about how your hormones might be underlying your symptoms. So one of the reasons I did the PhD, and definitely one of the reasons I wrote the book, was that there are so many poorly recognised symptoms that women have. For instance, headaches, heavy bleeding, abdominal bloating, irritability, anxiety, poor, low mood and depression, forgetfulness and poor concentration. Wow, that's a big one, and it's just not explained. I'm not saying I can explain it with hormonal changes. I'm just, making or helping midlife women become aware that they have these symptoms and they have something to do with the hormonal changes. We don't know exactly how and what, but I have set out where I think the hormones play a role, which ones, like estrogen, progesterone, some of the others, testosterone, FSH, etc. So this is more about validating some of the experiences that midlife women have, and they find that they don't get that validation in their doctor's office or even online. Online and in lots of videos like this, you hear a lot about menopause and menopause symptoms and the treatment of menopause, and there's a lot of awareness about the hot flushes and the sleep difficulties, and now there's more awareness about the changes in mood and the depression that can occur. It's very important to be aware of that. So the section 2 is about the symptoms and how your hormonal changes in midlife can underlie them, or at least contribute to them. So the final third section of 3 sections is my green section. It's the solutions. So in the solutions, I guess the number one basic program, I call it, is like an anti-inflammatory program, because inflammation plays a big role in the symptoms that we get. It also plays a role in disease, but it will cause symptoms before it will cause disease. And why it's important for midlife women is that it really it interacts with how we eliminate our own hormones, we produce our own hormones, and then experience symptoms as a result. So overall, I do start with an anti-inflammatory lifestyle diet as a basis for all the other sort of do-it-yourself interventions, because it makes everything else work so much better. So and it's a basis for the next big discussion on the solutions, which is my estrogen clearing program. And in this section, I explain where estrogen is produced if you're not actually taking estrogen, and where it is eliminated in the body. And this is a really big subject. It's a subject which I never discovered or learnt about in medical school, and one in which I'm really keen to sort of teach people and step it down so women themselves can take the actions to help their detoxification process in their own bodies. This is really important from midlife on, particularly if you are in menopause and you want to take hormone therapy. And then finally, there's some other targeted solutions like boosting your progesterone through midlife and perimenopause, and some of the things that you might want to include for heart health, bone health, and thyroid health, etc. Okay, so that's it for Introduction 2, which is about my book, and as you know, it's available on Amazon and all popular outlets. But if you are an Australian reader, please go to my website and you'll find it there too. That is www.halehealthmedicine.com, and we'll see you next time. Hello and welcome to the third of 3 introductions for the Midlife Moments with Dr. G. I'm Dr. Georgina Hale, specialist medical doctor and PhD in midlife women's hormones. So in the first 2 sections, I covered why I wrote my new book. It has my PhD findings in it, and also a lot from what I've gleaned from my clinical practice. And in the second part of the introduction, I spoke about what's in each of the 3 sections of this book. So for the third introduction, I just wanted to emphasize again that with being in midlife, a lot of women don't know where they are, whether they're close to perimenopause or menopause. So I wanted to talk about the zones, because the zones are there for you to use. I've outlined the zones so you can find out where you are in terms of midlife, late reproductive age, early perimenopause, late perimenopause, or menopause. So as I said in the previous introduction, my zones outlined in the book for you to use are actually based on the scientific stages of reproductive aging, or straw criteria. Now, these were created by a group of North American, mainly, researchers, and I was involved in creating the straw criteria with other people also from all over the world in 2001, and then we updated in 2010. So I'm very familiar with the straw criteria, so I sort of explain what each zone is and how it's related to the straw stage within these criteria. So most of the criteria involved in finding out what your zone is to do with your menstrual cycle. Now, obviously a lot of people may not have their menstrual cycles, they don't have their uterus anymore, so I also outline some of the common symptoms associated with each zone, so people who don't have menstrual cycles can also have an idea of what zone they're in. So in zone 1, typically women have regular menstrual cycles. Now, the only change that people might notice is a slight shortening of their menstrual cycle. Then in zone 2, in early perimenopause, typically women, they say that their menstrual cycles become shorter or longer, or both. So they may even experience 2 menstrual cycles a month. Has anyone heard of that? If you've had those before, you might have been told that you had breakthrough bleeding, but particularly my PhD study and other people's studies have shown that at midlife and early perimenopause, we can actually ovulate twice a month. So it's not uncommon for people to have a short cycle, like a 14-day or a 19-day cycle, and that's typical of zone 2. Now, when you get to zone 3, the criteria is that you start skipping cycles. So you might have a menstrual cycle that's 60 or more days long. It's explained more fully in the book, but just so you know that the menstrual cycle characteristics are what usually will put you in a particular zone or straw stage. Then, of course, zone 4 is menopause. That's when you haven't had a period for 12 months. Okay, so in the book, I also explain a lot about the symptoms and what you'd expect in each zone, or what typical symptoms in each zone you might expect to have. For example, in zone 1, one of the more common, say 30% of women, is much heavier bleeding and maybe flooding. Another common symptom in zone 1 would be headaches, and that can come from high estrogen. Not everyone, but that's just one of the more common ones. I also find in zone 1 and 2 there might be more irritability, low mood changes, changes in libido. Then by zone 3, and particularly in zone 4, you might start to feel you're feeling more hot, you might have flushes, you might have some sweats. And the one of the things that you might experience, or many women experience in zone 4, is vaginal dryness. And that's really a low estrogen symptom. So the zones are really important for midlife women to sort of get ready for the various stages before they go through the menopause. But it's also kind of nice for people who are already in the menopause to know where they've been and how to manage their hormones while they're in menopause. So now that we've had the 3 introductions, I just want to reiterate that this is the Midlife Moments is a video, but really a video for you to give feedback to me so that I can provide the information that you would like to hear about. So please make some suggestions in the comments section after the video, and I look forward to seeing you in my first Midlife Moments when it arrives. See you later.